My name is Walter Hayes. I am 90 years old. That number still surprises me when I say it. 90 means I have buried friends, watched cities change their faces, and learned that time does not soften people. It only reveals them. If there is one thing I have faced more than loss, more than failure, more than regret, it is disrespect. People think disrespect is loud, shouting, insults, slamming doors, but the worst disrespect I've ever known was quiet. It was the way my father spoke past me instead of to me. The way my first boss took credit for my ideas and called it leadership. The way people smiled while cutting me down just enough so I could not complain. At 90, I am finally old enough to say this out loud. Disrespect does not come from strangers. It comes from people who think you will tolerate it. Let me tell you how I learned that. Lesson 1. Silence teaches people how to treat you. I was 23 when I learned my first lesson, or rather, when I failed to learn it. Fresh out of the Navy, I got a job at a manufacturing plant in Ohio. I worked hard. Too hard, I believed effort spoke louder than words. I believed respect was automatic if you earned it. I was wrong. My supervisor, a man named Carl, liked to humiliate people softly. Never in front of everyone, always just enough so you questioned yourself. Are you sure you understand the instructions, Walt? I already explained this, didn't I? You're slower than I expected. I nodded. I smiled. I said nothing. I told myself, he's just tough. I told myself, I'll prove him wrong. Months passed. His comments got sharper. My confidence got smaller. One afternoon, after he corrected me in front of a new hire, I finally looked at him and said, yes, sir. That was the moment he knew. I would take it. Disrespect grows where silence lives. At 90, I know this truth clearly. When you say nothing, people hear permission. Lesson 2. Calm boundaries are louder than anger. I did not learn how to speak up until my 40s. By then, I had remarried, raised 2 children, and climbed into middle management. I thought disrespect would fade with age. It does not. It just changes clothes. This time it came from a business partner, a smooth talker, always late, always dismissive. He interrupted me in meetings, finished my sentences, laughed when I objected. One day, after he cut me off for the 3rd time, I felt that old fire rise. My fists clenched, my heart raced. The younger version of me would have exploded. The older version paused. I waited, then I said calmly, I wasn't finished speaking. Please don't interrupt me again. The room went quiet. No shouting, no insults, just a boundary, stated clearly. He tried once more a week later. I repeated myself, same tone, same words. He never did it again. Here is what age teaches you. Anger gives disrespect energy. Calm confidence takes it away. Lesson 3. You do not owe everyone access to you. This lesson came late, much too late. My sister, Ruth, had a way of making everything my fault. Our parents' mistakes, her failed marriage, her bitterness. For decades, I answered her calls, listened, explained, apologized for things I did not do, because she was family. At 7, after another phone call where she spoke to me like a disappointment, I put the receiver down and stared at my kitchen wall, and something in me finally settled. I realized respect is not earned by blood, it is sustained by behavior. The next time she called, I said, I won't continue conversations where I'm spoken to like this. She laughed, called me sensitive, so I stopped answering. Peace entered my life quietly after that. No drama, just space. People who disrespect you hate distance. It reminds them they are not entitled to you. Lesson 4. Your self-respect teaches others how valuable you are. This lesson was the hardest because it meant admitting I had participated in my own disrespect. I stayed in jobs too long, relationships too thin, conversations that drained me. Why? Because I was afraid of being alone, afraid of being misunderstood, afraid of starting over. But here is the truth I wish someone had told me at 30. Every time you accept less than you deserve, you tell the world that is your price. At 80, I stopped chasing approval. I spoke slower. I listened less to opinions and more to patterns. People adjusted, or they disappeared. Both outcomes were wins. Lesson 5 begins here. Let time do the talking. The final lesson took a lifetime. Some people will never respect you, not because you failed, but because respecting you would require them to face themselves. You do not need revenge. You do not need explanations. You do not need closure from people who lack depth. You need patience. Time exposes character better than confrontation ever will. At 90, I sit on my porch most mornings, coffee in hand, watching the world rush by. The men who mocked me now ask for advice. The ones who dismissed me now speak softly. The ones who never changed are exactly where I left them. Disrespect fades when you outgrow the room it lives in. And that, my friend, is where the real power begins. I used to think the goal of life was to be liked. That belief wasted decades. At 90, I know better. The goal is not to be admired, feared, or even understood. The goal is to live in a way that makes disrespect irrelevant. Let me finish the 5th lesson, because it is the one most people get wrong. Lesson 5. Let time and consistency finish the conversation. People often ask me, Walter, what do you say to someone who disrespects you? Most of the time, the answer is nothing. That surprises them. They expect a clever line, a sharp comeback, a moral victory. But here is the truth. The strongest response to disrespect is a life that no longer reacts to it. When I retired at 68, a former colleague told me, "You were never the bold one." I smiled. I wished him well, and I walked away. 10 years later, I ran into him at a grocery store. He was still working, still complaining, still angry. He looked at me and said, "You seem peaceful." That was my response. Time is not passive. Time is a witness. When you keep your standards steady, when you do not lower yourself to prove a point, people notice. Not immediately, but eventually, and when they do, their respect comes quietly, without apology. How all 5 lessons fit together. Now let me put this plainly, because I am old enough to skip poetry. First, silence invites disrespect. Speak early, calmly, and clearly. Second, anger weakens your position. Boundaries strengthen it. Third, access is a privilege, not an obligation. Protect your space. Fourth, self-respect sets your value. People follow your lead. Fifth, time rewards consistency. Stay steady long enough. These are not tricks. They are disciplines, and they require courage. What I wish younger people knew, when I watch young people today, I see the same mistakes I made. They argue with people who have already decided not to listen. They explain themselves to those who enjoy misunderstanding them. They chase respect instead of embodying it. Here is what I would tell you if we were sitting across from each other right now. You do not need to win every interaction. You need to win your self-respect back. Disrespect hurts most when you secretly agree with it. It loses power the moment you don't. The final story I will leave you with, when my wife passed away, I was 80. At the funeral, an old acquaintance said to me, "At your age, I guess you were expecting it." It was a careless thing to say, a small cruelty wrapped in logic. I looked at him. I felt the weight of 90 years behind my eyes. And I said, gently, "Love doesn't get easier because you're old." He apologized. Not because I attacked him, because I spoke from truth. That is the difference. Respect grows where truth is calm and unshakable. My last advice before I go, if you remember nothing else from a 90-year-old man, remember this. People will test how they can treat you, not once, repeatedly. Each time you teach them something, teach them that your dignity is not negotiable. Teach them that your peace is not fragile. Teach them that you can walk away without bitterness. And one day, much sooner than you think, you will look back and realize the people who disrespected you mattered far less than the person you became by refusing to let them. That is how you handle disrespect. Not with noise, not with revenge, but with a life that stands tall long after the voices fade